there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make my Percy the Pigeon crochet pattern. To follow along with today's tutorial, you're going to need worsted weight yarn in at least 3 different colors. I'm using my favorite worsted weight yarn here, which is We Crochet's Brava Worsted in the colors Caution, Denim, and Dove Heather. You're going to need some polyfill stuffing, a locking stitch marker, 2 6mm safety eyes. I'm using black safety eyes today, a bent tip tapestry needle. You can also use a regular tapestry needle if that's your preference. I just find that the bent tips are easier to use for amigurumi, a pair of scissors, and a 3.5mm or E crochet hook. And today I'm using a Clover Amour crochet hook. So if you're ready to get started, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to my channel. And I'm going to clear this away and we'll get started on making Percy the Pigeon. To start our pigeon, I'm starting off with the denim color. And we're going to start off by making a magic circle. And if you haven't done one of these before, I do have a tutorial on how to do these here on the channel, but I'm going to just start and do one quickly, assuming that you have done one before. Okay, so we have our magic circle, and we're going to start by placing 6 single crochets into the magic circle. So we're going to insert our hook into the magic circle, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's your first magic circle. Or, my goodness, that's your first single crochet, and we're going to do that 5 more times. So we will have a total of 6 single crochets. So now that I have my 6 single crochets, I'm going to pull that ring tight, and that is the end of round 1. Now you're going to need your stitch marker because we're going to be using that to mark the first stitch of our round, and we'll move it up in each subsequent round so we always know which is our first stitch. So to start with round 2, we're going to do a single crochet increase into each stitch round. A single crochet increase is 2 single crochet stitches done in the same stitch. So we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2. Then we're going to put our stitch marker in, and we're going to go back into that same stitch we just worked in and single crochet again. So again, we're just going to place 2 single crochets, or as I like to call them, just single crochet increase into each stitch around. At the end of round 2, you should have 12 single crochet stitches. For round 3, we're going to start by placing 1 single crochet into the first stitch. And then we're going to move up our stitch marker. And then we're going to place a single crochet increase into the next stitch. So once again, that is 2 single crochets in the same stitch. And we're going to repeat this pattern around our piece by doing 1 single crochet in the first stitch and 2 single crochets into the next stitch. Like I said, we're going to repeat that pattern all the way around our piece. And at the end of round 3, you should have 18 single crochets. So if you'd like to pause your video and come back to me when you're ready to start with round 4, I'll be ready to share the next instructions in just a moment. So I just finished with round 3. I have 18 single crochets, and for rounds 4 and 5, we're just going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So if you'd like to pause your video and do 2 rounds of single crochet, I'll meet you back here when we're ready to start with round 6. So now I'm starting with round 6, and I'm going to single crochet into the first 7 stitches. So there's my first stitch, and I've moved up my stitch marker. 3. And now I'm going to start an 8th stitch, and I'm going to insert into the stitch and pull up my loop, but I'm not going to finish off with the blue because I'm going to change to my next color, which is going to be the yellow, because we're going to create the beak. And so for the last yarn over of my 8th stitch here, I'm going to do the last yarn over here in yellow. Okay, so now we're going to lay the blue down and we're going to pick up the yellow, but we don't want to completely lose that blue yarn here. We want to keep the tension on that, because if you lose tension, you can have a bit of a gap on the face. So we don't want that to happen. So just keep on holding that blue yarn behind your piece here. So now we're going to do a bobble to create the beak. So we're going to yarn over and insert into our next stitch here, and you can crochet over those tails that you're holding in the back, and that will help with the tension as well. So we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through 2. Then you're going to yarn over and insert back into that same stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. You should have 4 loops on your hook there. Yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, and so now we're going to do that one more time. We're going to yarn over, insert back into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. And you guessed it, we're going to yarn over and pull through those first 2 loops again. So at this point, you should have 4 loops on your hook. Sorry there, had a little bit of a yarn tangle. And instead of yarning over with our yellow, we're going to yarn over with our blue to finish the stitch. So this can be a little tricky. Hold that yellow in the back with your finger, yarn over and pull the blue through that stitch. Okay, then you're going to single crochet into the next stitch. And I like to, again, crochet over my tails here. It helps keep the tension. And then I'm going to take my finger and pop the bobble out to the right side of my work. Okay, and that's your beak. Now you're going to single crochet into each of the remaining stitches around. So if you'd like to pause your video and come back to me when you're ready to start with round 7, I'll meet you back here when you're ready for that. So I'm ready to start with rounds 7 and 8. And for rounds 7 and 8, we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch around. If you have already crocheted over your tails for your yellow for probably at least a couple of stitches here, you can cut that yellow yarn because you're not going to be needing that again. You can set that aside until we're ready to do the feet. And so now we're just going to continue on with rounds 7 and 8 and place 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So if you'd like to pause your video and come back to me when you're ready for the next set of instructions, I will meet you back here when you're ready for that. So I just finished round 7 and 8, and this is what our pigeon head looks like so far. And we're going to need to place our safety eyes into our head. So we are going to be placing these safety eyes into round 5. And so I can identify round 5 because we know that our bobble stitch was done in round 6. So we're going to be putting them into the round before. And we're going to have our pigeon's head facing us, and we're going to insert our safety eyes with 3 stitches between them. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it here. There's 1, 2, 3. That looks good. So I'm going to put my eye in here. Count over 3 again. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to put it into that 4th stitch. Okay. This is that moment where I always feel like saying, it's alive, because it has a bit of a personality now. Anyways, so now that we've got our eyes, I'm happy with my placement. We can put the backs onto our safety eyes. And there we go. So now we're going to finish off with our blue. We're not going to be using this any longer. And we're going to cut a tail of probably about 4 to 6 inches. And then we're going to pull that tail all the way through our last stitch. We're going to need our tapestry needle now, because we're going to be doing a technique called the invisible join. And this technique helps to smooth out your color changes. So I'm going to pop this stitch marker out of here, and we're going to use our tail to duplicate the first stitch of the round. And so we're going to insert our tapestry needle from the right side through to the back of our fabric through the second stitch of the round. And we're going to pull that until we have a good tension where it looks like it's the front loop of our first stitch. Then we're going to take our tapestry needle and we're going to insert it from the top of the stitch, grabbing that back loop only and out towards the back of our fabric. Then we're going to pull that tail through, and again we're just going to adjust that tension until it looks like our first stitch of the round. Okay, so we're going to set our tapestry needle aside. If you need to, you can pop a stitch marker in that to keep an eye on that for you till you are ready to bring in your next color. And the next color here is the Dove Heather, or the light gray. And we're going to attach the gray into the back loop only of the first stitch of round 8, which is the stitch that we just duplicated. So we're going to go under that front back loop only, sorry. I'm going to pick up our new color, and we're going to slip stitch to attach, like so. And now at this point, I'm going to just give that blue tail a tug to keep the tension on my stitch. And as I'm working this round, I'm going to work over my tail to help secure it on the inside of the work. So now I'm going to single crochet into the back loop of my first stitch here. And I'm going to pick up those tails and single crochet. Then I'm going to put my stitch marker into that stitch. And then I'm ready to go. So like I said, I'm going to continue to crochet over those tails to help secure them on the inside of my piece. So working for the rest of the round, we're going to work one single crochet into each stitch around, working through the back loop only. And again, to do that back loop only, you're going to insert through the top of the stitch, under that back loop, and then single crochet as normal. So if you'd like to pause your video and finish with round 9 and meet me back here when you're ready for the instructions for round 10, I'll be here ready and waiting to show you what to do next. Now that I finished with round 9, I'm ready to move on to round 10. And round 10 is a very simple round. We're just going to place one single crochet into each stitch around, and we're working back under both loops again. We're not going to be doing back loop only. It's back under both loops, one single crochet into each stitch around. So if you'd like to pause your video, meet me back here for round 11, I will meet you here. All right, and now we're going to be starting with round 11. For round 11, we're going to place one single crochet into that first stitch. And we're going to place a single crochet increase into the next stitch. Now we will single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, followed by a single crochet increase into the next. And we're going to repeat this pattern 4 more times. And that pattern is single crochet in the first 2 stitches, followed by an increase in the next. I'm going to repeat that until there's 1 stitch left to be worked in this round. And when you have that last stitch, we're going to put 1 single crochet into that stitch. At the end of round 11, you should have 24 stitches. So now we're going to be moving on to rounds 12 through 14, and we're just going to be placing 1 single crochet into each stitch around for those rounds. And so that means there won't be any shaping at all. You're just going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around for rounds 12, 13, and 14. So if you'd like to pause your video, I'll meet you back here when we're ready for round 15. And now we are ready to start with round 15. And we're going to do that by placing 1 single crochet into that first stitch. And in this round, we're going to start decreasing our stitches in order to close up our body. So to do a decrease, I always like to use what's called an invisible decrease, which helps make your decreases less noticeable. So to do that, we're going to identify the front loop of our stitches, which is the loop of the stitch that is closest to you. And you're going to pick up the front loops of the first and second stitch that you want to decrease. So we're going to insert our hook under that front loop, kind of twist our hook a little bit to pick up that second front loop. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through both loops, yarn over and pull through two. And that's your invisible decrease. So anytime that I say we're going to be doing a decrease, we will be using the invisible decrease. So now we're going to place one single crochet into each of the next two stitches. And now we're going to do another decrease. Now we'll do one single crochet in each of the next two stitches, followed by a decrease. Single crochet in each of the next two stitches, followed by a decrease. And we're going to repeat this pattern of 2 single crochets followed by a decrease around until there's 1 stitch to work. And when you get to that last stitch, you're going to place 1 single crochet into that stitch. At the end of round 15, you should have 18 stitches. So at the end of round 15 is where I like to start stuffing my pigeon. Now, because of the size of the bird and how close the eyes are, I like to take particular care to make sure that I get stuffing between the posts of the eyes. So that way it doesn't push my eyes out in a wonky direction. You might know what I'm talking about. Sometimes the posts, when they're put together so close in a small piece like this, the posts tend to want to curve towards each other on the inside, and they kind of hit each other. And then it makes your eyes kind of look a little wonky. So you can combat that by taking just small amounts of stuffing when you're starting to stuff, and make sure that you get your fingers in there and you make sure that there's stuffing between the posts. Sorry, just doing that. It can be a little finicky. You want to stuff your toy firmly. When you give it a little squeeze, it should feel like a firm, ripe orange. You definitely don't want to understuff. All right, so I'm happy with my stuffing now, and I'm ready to move on to round 16. For round 16, we're just going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So if you'd like to do round 16 and meet me back here for round 17, I'll meet you back here in just a minute. And now we are starting with round 17. And for round 17, we're going to start by placing one single crochet into that first stitch. And then we're going to decrease in the next 2 stitches here. And we're going to repeat this pattern of 1 single crochet followed by a decrease around our piece. At the end of round 17, you should have 12 stitches remaining. As we're working, we want to make sure that we continue to add stuffing as we're working to make sure we get a nice even stuff for our pigeon. All right, so we are ready to start with round 18. This is the last round of the body of our pigeon, and we're going to be doing 6 single crochet decreases. So again, we're continuing on with those invisible decreases. We're going to decrease until we have 6 stitches remaining. All right, so now that I've done all of my decreases, I'm going to cut my yarn and leave a tail of probably about 6 inches here. And I'm going to pull that yarn all the way through. I'm going to bring my tapestry needle and I'm going to thread the tail onto tapestry needle. And what we're going to do to close up our pigeon is we're going to weave our tail through the front loops of each stitch of the last round. So we're going to just pick up the front loop of each stitch. And what this will do is essentially create a drawstring for us to cinch it closed. Right, so now I've done that, I'm going to just pull that taut. And there we go. If you have a little tiny nub here from the last round, you can take your tapestry needle and insert that in through the center of the last round and out through a stitch in the back of your piece. And if you pull that, it will even itself out and no more nub. So we'll finish that off. You can weave in your ends, and then I'll meet you back here. We're going to be needing our denim color because we are going to be starting with the wings. All right, so we are ready to make our wings. I have my denim color here. We're still using the same hook, and we're going to start with a magic circle. Now that we have our magic circle, we're going to place 6 single crochets into that magic circle. Now that I have 6, I'm going to cinch that ring tight, and we are ready to start with round 2. For round 2, we're going to place a single crochet increase. Once again, that's 2 single crochets into each stitch around. So there's my first stitch, and we're going to need that stitch marker again to mark our first stitch of each round. So again, we're just placing a single crochet increase into each stitch around, and at the end of this round you should have 12 stitches. For round 3, we're going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around. At the end of this round, we'll still have 12 stitches. For round 4, we're going to start with a single crochet decrease. So again, we're picking up those front loops of the first and second stitch to do our invisible decrease. And then we're going to single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And now we will do a single crochet decrease. And we will single crochet into each of the remaining 4 stitches. Starting with round 5, we are going to do a single crochet decrease. And then we'll single crochet once into each of the next 3 stitches. And now we will do a single crochet decrease. Followed by 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. And now for round 6, we are going to decrease. And then we'll place 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And now we will do another decrease. Followed by 2 single crochets. Oops. At the end of round 6, you should have 6 single crochets. So what we're going to do now is we're going to finish off and we're going to leave a long tail because we're going to need that for sewing. So I'm going to just guesstimate it probably about, I don't know, 10 inches, 12 inches. I like to have more than I need to so I don't run out. And we're going to pull that yarn tail all the way through the stitch. Now, if you have this extra yarn tail, from your magic circle. You can either pull it back into your wing and bury it in your bird, or if you feel like it's secure enough, you can cut your yarn and get that out of the way. Now this is the tail that we left for sewing, and I'm going to thread that onto a tapestry needle here. And just like we did with the body, I'm going to cinch the tip of the wing closed by weaving that tail through the front loop only. And we're not stuffing this piece, we're keeping it flat. Okay, so I've woven through all of the front loops, and I'm just going to cinch that closed. So now you've got that nice little point on your wing. And we're going to take our tapestry needle and we're going to insert through the center of the last round and out through any stitch here on the side of the wing. I like to come out near the edge here. I don't want to pull that too tight. And now it's ready for me to sew this onto my bird. So you're going to need to make a second wing, so you'll have to rewind your video and rewatch the instructions and make a second wing. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to show you how I would sew this onto my bird. Now, as an amigurumi designer, I rely very heavily on pins. They help me to hold my pieces in place, so that way I can sew things on a little more easily, and also helps me get good placement. So I'm going to show you how I do this with my pins. You don't have to use this. It's just something that I like to do. So once you have both of your wings done, you're going to take your wings, point your tips towards the back of the bird, and you're just going to kind of find a good place. If I had both my wings done here, I'd make sure that they line up on the front. I have a bird here that I've already completed in teal, and you can see that they line up here on the front. So if you are going to use the pins like I am, I use these corsage pins. Are amazing for amigurumi because they get really great hold. You just got to make sure that they don't poke you through on the other side. So I've got this here, and this is pretty secure now, so I feel like I can confidently sew this on. So to sew this piece on, I'm going to make sure that my tail is on the side of the wing that's touching my body. And then I'm just going to work into the stitches directly underneath the wing to sew it on. Now we want to leave the tip unsewn, so we're just going to kind of work in a circular pattern around this area of the wing through the underside of the fabric. So now that I've gone through the body, I'm going to come up here and pick up a stitch on the inside of the wing. And I'm just going to continue that around. And again, I'm not going to work the tip, and I'll show you here how I've done it. Sorry, this guy has become a bit of a pin cushion. So my tip is not actually sewn on. Like I said, I've sewn underneath the wing, and I'm just working in that circular shape here underneath with the tips unsewn. Okay, so if you'd like to pause your video and make your other wing and sew that on, I will meet you back here and show you how to do the tail. You'll need your denim color for that as well. And now we are moving on to make our tail. We're using the denim color again, and we're going to start off, as we have with every piece so far, with a magic circle. And we're going to place 6 single crochets into our magic circles. Now that I have my 6 single crochets, I'm going to pull that ring tight, and I'm ready to start with round 2. For round 2, I'm going to place a single crochet increase into each stitch around. Once again, that's 2 single crochets into each stitch around. All right, now that I have my first stitch, I'm going to place that stitch marker, and I'm going to go ahead and put my single crochet increase into each stitch around. At the end of round 2, you should have 12 single crochet stitches. So now that I'm done with round 2, I'm just going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around for rounds 3 through 5. So if you'd like to pause your video and do rounds 3 through 5 in single crochet, and I will meet you back here when it's time to move on to the next step. So I just finished with rounds 3 through 5, and what I'm going to do now is pull my yarn all the way through. I've cut a tail of at least 6 to 8 inches here. Probably a little longer could be a little safer, but just as long as you feel like you have enough yarn for sewing here. And then I'm going to take my tail. Once it's done, I'm going to flatten it. We're not going to stuff it. And I'm just going to place it on the bottom of my bird. And then I would sew through the tops of my stitches to sew it to the bottom. And I'm going to use one of my pins here to show. So I'm just going to sew it to the bottom here. If you would like it, if you did want a longer tail than this, you could just add some extra rows of single crochet there. But I like his stubby little tail. And so we'll sew that on. And once you're ready, you've done that and you're ready to move on, we're going to need our yellow color to make its feet. And now we are ready to move on to making our feet for our little bird. We should already have our bird's body, wings, and tail ready and attached to our bird, and we're ready to do our feet. To do that, we're going to start with the yellow color, and I'm going to place a slip knot onto my crochet hook. And we're going to start our feet by making a chain 8. So yarn over, pull through your loop, and we're going to do that until we have 8 chains. So now we're going to turn our chain so we can identify that back bump in our chain here. I hope that you can see that easily. It's a little bump on the back of the chain. And working in the second chain from the hook, so 1, 2, turn over and insert into that back bump. We're going to slip stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch into the next 3 chains as well. All right, so now we've got 4 slip stitches. And now we're going to chain 4. We're going to turn that chain and we're going to work in the back bumps for that as well. And we're going to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook and into each of the next 2 chains. Okay. So now we're going to slip stitch back into the last chain that we worked from our original chain 8. So we're just going to go back into that chain and slip stitch again. And then we're going to slip stitch into each remaining chain that we have to work. And again, we're still continuing to work into that back bump. All right. So now we're going to cut our yarn, leaving enough yarn for us to sew. I like to leave at least 8 to 10 inches for this. We're going to pull that yarn all the way through our stitch. We're going to grab our tapestry needle and I'm going to show you what we need to do here. So we need to hide these yarn tails here. Okay, so we've got our 2 toes and we need to hide the yarn tails in order to make it look clean. It doesn't matter which of these tails you start with. You just need to grab one and thread it onto a tapestry needle. So then we're going to take our tapestry needle and weave it inside. I like to just try to fit down through the center of the yarn. You can't see the needle on that side, you can't see the needle on this side. We're just kind of putting it through the middle of a sandwich essentially. We're just going to pull that all the way through. Okay. And now what I like to do is, now this is the wrong side and this is the right side. I normally like to take the tapestry needle and pull the yarn through to the wrong side, because I'm just going to take that tail and I'm going to insert it up into the body of the bird and hide the tail within the bird. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing with our other tail, the one that we're going to use for sewing. All right. And again, we're just going to take that tail, fit it down through the toe and out through the back. You don't want to pull that too tight, or else you're going to have like kind of one stubby little toe. If you do that, you can just kind of pull it back up and even them out. So now I would grab my bird and take my feet. I would take my tapestry needle and pull this tail up into the bird so I could hide it, and then I'll use this tail to sew it onto the bottom of the bird. And to do that, I'm just going to pick up the stitches directly underneath the foot. Oh, I've gone too far. You're really only picking up like one stitch, or sometimes even half a stitch, depending on where you're placing your feet. And then I'm just going through the bottom of the foot. That will give you the cleanest look on top of your foot possible, going through the bottom there. And you want to make sure that when you are placing your feet, that the toes kind of stick out a little bit up at the front. So now you'll need to pause the video, or rewind the video, sorry, to go back and make your second foot. And then when you're done, sew it onto the bottom. And then you'll be all finished your Percy Pigeon. So if you enjoyed this video or you found it helpful, please hit that like button, and please consider subscribing to my channel. If you enjoy free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.